Hello and welcome to our presentation tonight. Welcome to our Awakened Conversation. This is Paul Hoyt, your host, and in just a few minutes I'll be excited to introduce my special guest, Bill Stierle, who is a person that I've known for a long time, and I'm eager to learn more about his journey of personal growth and business growth. Just as to give you a little information on our logistics and agenda, I do want this to be interactive. So as you are listening to today's telecast, think of any questions or discussion points that you would like to have. And at the end of the call, we'll take you off a mute if you're able to do that. And we'll be happy to talk about the things that are of interest to you or answer any questions that you might have. We're going to have a brief review of what it means to me to be an awakened CEO. I'm going to share some inspirational thoughts. Then we're going to turn our attention to our guest, Bill, and we're going to ask him some questions, as we do all of our guests, about his journey and about his business and the relationship in between his personal journey and his business journey. And then we'll open it up for questions and discussions. I expect that the call tonight will last between 45 and 60 minutes, depending upon the number of questions and discussion topics that we have. First of all, I want to talk about what does it mean to be awakened. And there are two different perspectives. From a mental perspective, being awakened means to wake up from sleep. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I get up in the morning, I'm not nearly as sharp as I am just a few minutes later after the oxygen has moved to my brain and I've stirred a little bit. It means to become conscious and aware and alert and to be sharp and to be very clear and to be very focused. That's what being awakened means from a mental perspective. But from a spiritual perspective, awakened means to have higher consciousness, to become enlightened, to become detached and observant, to be in the now, to see your potential. And for me, it's all about being absolutely amazed at this incredible human experience. To me, being awakened is part of the natural progression of the evolution of individuals and of our society. Our planet is becoming more and more awakened and aware all the time. And I think it's because we're exposed to so many new ideas and cultures than we ever have had before. I really think that we're experiencing on this planet a technology-fueled evolution because of the information that's available at our fingertips, information on different spiritual and religious practices and cultures. I think it's causing all of us to be a little bit more aware and observant of who we are. I think that for most of us here on this planet, self-actualization is the goal. I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it starts with physiological needs and then moves into safety and then into love and belonging and esteem and self-actualization. And to me, personal awakening to higher consciousness, awakening to some form of enlightenment awareness is the highest form of self-actualization that there can be. But we're talking about being an awakened CEO, so let's talk about being a great CEO for a second. Being a great CEO is about running a profitable, sustainable, and scalable business. Your business doesn't have to be scalable, but it ought to be profitable and sustainable. And ups and downs are expected along the way, but long-term success, I think, is a fundamental requirement of being a great CEO. Then an awakened CEO is somebody that's alert, aware, sharp, and clear, who optimizes personal performance for themselves and others, is confident yet humble, is respected for who they are, for the vibration that they have. They typically acknowledge, respect, encourage, and support everyone and serves other people by leadership through their leadership and by example. An awakened CEO sets a clear vision for other people to follow, has a great team and collaborates well with that team, runs a smart business, makes tough choices, plans and focuses the growth of the company, listens, learns, and adjusts along the way, guides, mentors, and coaches the people they work with, and even cares and loves everybody at their organization. My personal experience is that awakening and business success can come hand in hand and do come hand in hand, that business growth and professional growth and personal growth are all integrated and interrelated, that we gain business savvy and wisdom at the same time. My experience is that you can achieve a very high level of consciousness without living in a monastery, without being ordained in some way, without going to India, by focusing your time and attention on your inner work day after day. so that when you do get out of balance and find yourself in the shadows, that you can return very, very quickly. And I think that you can have an enormous amount of peace, joy, strength, wisdom, and love in your life, where sitting in the silence becomes a normal, everyday occurrence and becomes a very normal experience for you, and it absolutely feels great. I think that one of the best ways to do that is focused on 3 areas of growth at the same time: business growth, professional growth, and personal growth. And as I often say, it's the personal growth that really enables the professional growth and the business growth. And I encourage you, each and every one of you, to find your success formula. Find that way of going throughout your day, focusing a good deal of time on work, but also some time on professional development and personal growth at the same time, and your own balancing activities. Those balancing activities might be exercise, it could be playing video games, doing the things to relax so that you can have the right energy and the right vibration for the rest of the activities during the day. I invite you to play along with me what I call the awakening game. The awakening game is simply finding ways to be at your highest vibration every second of every day through frequent self-assessments and focused attention on shifting your energy. I'd like to share a little bit of an inspirational moment with you today, and I call this 1,000 lessons, 1,000 teachers, and 1,000 ways. I wrote about this in one of my books on the practice of awakening. So here's an inspirational thought for you. You know, there are 1,000 lessons to be learned in this lifetime. Valuable lessons that help us live happier, more peaceful, more grounded lives. Lessons such as gratitude, humility, detachment, kindness, decisiveness, generosity, and so on. With every lesson comes a release of some inner pain. And with every lesson, the door to spirit opens just a little wider. With every lesson comes greater peace and greater joy. And there are 1,000 teachers of those lessons. Formal teachers like philosophers and priests and therapists and professors, to be sure, but also family and friend and co-workers, and children and people passing by, and dogs and cats and flowers and hummingbirds. The teachers appear from everywhere and constantly. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, and oftentimes in the most unexpected forms. And there are 1,000 ways that you can have to shift energy and change your life experience. There are 1,000 things that you can do right now, like take a deep breath, stretch, or take a walk, or slow down your thoughts, or simply think different thoughts, or have a drink, or grab a bite to eat, or say a poem, or listen to some music, sing a song. The list goes on and on and on. And every day we have the opportunity to work on ourselves. We have the opportunity to learn our lessons and to become just a little bit wiser, a little happier, a little kinder, a little more peaceful, and a little more powerful every day, day by day by day. The practice of awakening pays off in the most marvelous ways. And I hope if you're listening to this, that you have an opportunity or take the opportunity to learn your next lesson, whatever that might be, or to be reminded of those valuable lessons that you've learned in the past. And I encourage you to be open to those teachers wherever they may come from, whether they're children or your parents or your teachers or your co-workers. Just be open for that next lesson, because with that lesson will come greater peace and joy in your life. It's been my privilege to learn a lot from a lot of different people over time, and I'm proud to say that our guest today, Bill Stierle, has been one of my teachers throughout the years. Bill has been really instrumental in helping me understand more about the nature of personality and the differentiation between different thinking styles. So I want to welcome Bill to our program today. And as always, I have a few questions, but first let me introduce him a little bit. Bill has spent 23 years as a specialist speaker and a coach in how thinking, behavior, and beliefs impact our performance. As an expert in human behavior, Bill has revolutionized how his clients do business. Throughout his career, Bill has supported Fortune 500 companies, top business schools, A-list celebrities, governmental institutions, and individual business people to refine their effectiveness through streamlined systems and has energized sales teams to dramatically increase their bottom line profits. Bill is a great businessman with a great value to bring to other business people. And it's my pleasure to welcome him, one of my teachers, Bill Stierle, to our call tonight. Welcome, Bill.
Glad to be here. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you very well. Thank you very much. Bill, I'm going to ask you the questions that I love to ask everyone that comes on our calls on these Awakened Conversations. First, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your business journey, how you came to have your own business, how you came to be CEO of your business, and when you started, and talk to us a little bit about what you do and the ways that you help your clients.
Well, the big thing about my business journey really is about how to best service people in order to really fundamentally support these gnawing questions in my brain. My first gnawing question that showed up in my brain was, why do people think the way they do? And I started asking that question when I was a high school anatomy and physiology teacher and football coach.
Wow.
Now, I said, people are thinking, these students in front of me are thinking very differently. I put the information in front of them. Some of them do good on tests, some of them don't. You know what, there's something about this thinking that's going on. So by asking that, and that led me to mentor number one. Mentor number one is a gentleman named Ned Herman. He worked at General Electric as a part of the training department, and he was asking the same questions about how the brain works in order to create learning from the training and get, have the right resumes coming in and putting the right people in place. And so by learning about why people think the way they do, what my business grew out of is the question of, okay, I'm doing this with my students. Well, I need to start teaching teachers how the students think. So then I started teaching teachers. Then I started teaching parents. Then I started teaching the husbands and wives of parents that were running businesses. So I actually gradually moved my way through education into my own business by doing team analysis, by doing strategic planning, by doing systems improvement, by doing hiring and communication training. So I actually grew out of the education world into my own business about doing these trainings and these various different professional development. So that was kind of step one. Step one is, why do people think the way they do? And a part of that process, a part of the thinking process, was just figuring out, I thought differently than other people, and other people think differently than I do. And it was a great relief to me, because one of the major reasons why I was a teacher was, now this is going to sound weird, but I became a teacher because I was really not very good in school. Now think about that as a strategy, right? So I became a teacher because okay, I'm going to be coaching football, because I did play college football and such, and so I'm going to coach and I'm going to teach. Well, what I'm going to teach, I'm really good at this science stuff, so I started doing that, and I wasn't really particularly good grade-wise, but somehow people were able to learn from me pretty well, and then all of a sudden it just grew into an expertise. It grew into a skill. It grew into a mastery of being able to identify what's the difference between a CFO and what's the difference between the CFO and the VP of Human Resources. Well, those are two different jobs.
Yeah, those really are. Bill, I know that your business now really supports people on what I think is gaining significant wisdom in between the different thinking styles that we people have. That my thinking style and the way that I approach things and the perspective that I have is much different than yours is, or other people's are. And understanding that, hey, we're not all the same, and we're not all supposed to be the same, and it's okay to have our different differences, I think is a really valuable piece of wisdom that you can help people learn and support them on their journey.
I really, as I hear you talking, I kind of get chills by hearing you talk because when I think about our friendship and when I think about the information, the way we have basically played a tennis match between our thinking styles, you and your strengths and me and my strengths, and during the different trainings that that we've been in and listening to each other's work, workshops and things like that, it really is that appreciation of the differences
Uh,
because when I was growing up, Paul, your thinking style and the way you approach the world would scare me, would intimidate me in the past before I knew that there was such a thing as other. That you have this other thing and I have this other thing, and we can just play between these other things instead of your way is better and my way is worse because I don't think like you. I mean, it's like a huge
yeah. And how
difference.
long have you had your own business, Bill?
I started my own business in the mid
Hmm.
90s, and I started my own business really just kind of out of knowing that education was not a full fit for me. I enjoyed the teaching component of it, but I also noticed that my offering was needed in so many different places. So I started working with different businesses, and then it went into different industries.
Hmm.
So I was able then to work with attorneys and deal with court cases and how to communicate to the jury better
Yes.
and know the different personality styles of the different jury members.
So you do offer mediation and conflict resolution services as well. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct. And
Go ahead.
yeah, and that's the kind of the second part of the journey is once we figure out and once we get a snapshot of our thinking style that a CFO is different than a human resources and marketing is more creative and risk taking is different than operations. The CMO or VP of marketing is different than the COO, the operations person. That is called the core of an executive team.
Mhm.
The CEO sits in the middle of those four positions and then tries to spin the wheel, making sure there's enough money in finance, make sure that the marketing is going out in a timely way, making sure they have enough staff in human resources, and make sure there's enough operations. Now, the key component that slices in there is sales. Sales is a combination of this interpersonal experience where I'm going to connect with somebody, and then that is going to be, and that's also going to have the second element of they need to pick up a check in a short amount of time. So they don't have a lot of time to get the check. So they can only give just enough connection to get the check. Now, you might be thinking, well, Bill, that means that once they get the check, well, what happens? Well, the business then has to do customer service. They have to make good on the money that was collected. So by knowing what these different thinking styles are, we then, and many executive teams have experienced this from me, is that they depersonalize the person that is sitting across the table. They then can see it's a thinking style, not that John is being a jerk because they keep going through all the details. Is John is doing the details because he's in charge of
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah. Yeah. I got it. I
you
got
know,
it.
you know. So that makes a big
Well,
difference.
Bill, I know that you've helped lots and lots of companies out there and people and individuals over the last 20 years in your business. I want to turn the next question, if I may, towards your inner journey and your current spiritual practices. So I know as you have developed this capability to help people and companies, that you've also been gaining insight and wisdom along the way. So talk to me a little bit about your inner journey, your spiritual journey, your journey of personal growth over the years.
Well, I'm enjoying that question because uh, it was it was literally I would say somewhere around the third grade or the fourth grade,
Uh,
where I kept wondering why do these my friends, why are they getting an A and I'm getting a C or a D? Well, they must know this is called a false belief. They must know what I know and what the teacher knows, and that's why they got an A. In other words, it was always they knew what I knew, and then they got they knew more than I did.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea that their brain was tilted towards what the teacher was teaching, and neither the teacher or they had any idea about what I was thinking. They had none of my strengths and my abilities. So in that third grade, in that fourth grade, I kept noticing, I go, this can't be right. I can't be in this space. So it opened my mind up into that question of, why do I think the way they do? Why do people think the way they do?
Uh-huh.
Now, along that journey of thinking, then once I had that answer, I also, in my personal development, then started, my self-worth felt better.
Yeah.
My ability to connect to others went better. My ability to have confidence went better, because I was more grounded with what my values were, and that like I don't have to be everything to everyone. I'm not gonna listen, Paul. I really hope it's okay that I am not going to be an accountant in this lifetime. I'm just not going to do that job. And there's no spiritual thing that I need to do
That's right.
to say, oh, yeah, I don't have to be an accountant. It's really okay to delegate the accounting thing, and I'm just going to be the best consultant I can be in this creative, innovative way that I am, and then allow other people to support me. Now, this is when it gets a little weird, is that I'm going to allow other people to support me, and here it goes. I'm going to extend trust.
Uh-huh.
Extend trust, and kind of like Ronald Reagan, and then verify as I go along to see if they have skill. Just because somebody doesn't have skill doesn't mean you can't trust them. It just means they need more skill or more support in order to trust them more.
I got it.
So it's a really interesting thing. So a part of my spiritual journey was self-acceptance. This is what I think like. And then how do I extend trust, delegate, rely on others to be on the journey with me, and that's the first step of that.
That's just marvelous. One of my favorite expressions is it's the pain that wakes us up. When it comes to our personal journey and our spiritual journey, oftentimes it's those things that trouble us the most. The people who trigger us and tag us and piss us off, or the circumstances that just frighten us in some way, that cause us to look inward and look outward and to dig deeper and to learn that next lesson, whatever it is. And I heard you say, I think I heard you say, it was that pain of wondering why you weren't a better student early on that eventually led you to the wisdom that our educational system is really focused on maybe one or two thinking styles. And your particular gift, your gift of being a visionary and a creative person and a relationship person, was not so much honored in third grade mathematics.
Yeah, that's right. That's right on it. And once I was able to take that first breath of fresh air to say, to see that there was this difference, and then to really honor and make it true and make it so, and say, I'm going to teach this to others, and then as I start helping them to wake up and to see that, then I can deal with some more of the other complex and issues that I was facing. And of course, as soon as the thinking part was sort of established in my consciousness, of course, spirit, the universe kind of threw the next sentence in front of me. And the next sentence that showed up in front of me on my spiritual journey is, why do people behave the way they do? Because what wound up happening, Paul, on my journey is that there were some things that were happening that I knew that this person was a logical person, but I didn't know why they were such an angry person.
Yeah.
And then I knew that this person was an emotional person, but why did they hold so much contempt? You know, and this anger had so much criticism in it, and this contempt had so much bitterness in it. And then why did this creative person always withdraw in the face of conflict? And why did this organized person always be defensive in certain situations? So I kept noticing this thing called behavior
Mhm.
that kept showing up. And that was the question that led me to mentor number two. The question of why do people behave the way they do kept circling around. I kept noticing like there was this big gray hand that would come out of the basement of people's psyches. It would grab them by the ankle in the middle of one of my sessions or one of my trainings and pull them down into the basement. And while they're getting pulled down into the basement, they would grab my ankle and drag me down with them.
Yes.
And so I kept noticing, oh gosh, now why is that? Now, so what wound up happening is my second mentor showed up, and his name is Marshall Rosenberg, and he's a international mediator. Who was an international mediator that would fly into war-torn countries and with a languaging tool start to talk the language of peace until people put their guns down. So can you imagine that? I mean, as soon as I heard the first time I heard him speak, he said, when I flew to central Nigeria to mediate between two African tribes
Wow.
in a village where there were 600 people, there were 800 people 6 months earlier, and now there were only 600 people. I was thinking to myself, I slid my butt to the edge of the chair and I said, teach me Yoda. It was like, how do you take a languaging tool, go to a completely different country, now even with a completely different
Yeah.
language, and be able to trust that with this languaging tool, you can get people to put their guns down and stop killing each other. I mean, it was, and from that moment, the story just burned into my brain. It was like, it is how do I connect this chief's pain to this other chief's pain?
Yeah.
How do I get the village elders to see each other's pain as it's coming up, and then connect to and get them to empathize with each other's pain in order to reduce conflict. And that's the second tool called nonviolent communication that I teach and that I utilize when I'm called in to do mediations and when I'm called in to do court cases or to coach people to manage their emotions and manage the emotions of others by knowing where the emotion is coming from, knowing what need is causing that emotion to come alive. And that's a big part, and that's why I'm excited to be on our call today, because if we're talking about an awakened CEO, well, he better be able to know the emotional management of his staff
Yeah.
and to get them to cooperate. I mean, even the simple word called cooperation is difficult when you take something personal. Well, I don't want to cooperate with that jerk, you know.
I certainly have
Because
thought that from time to time myself. Not so much these days, but in the early
that's
days, that's for sure. Yeah, that's
I hear that.
a tremendous amount of wisdom that you have developed for yourself over the years and now share with others. Bill, and by the way, for those who are attending the call live, in just a few minutes, we're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions of Bill or suggest some discussion topics. So you're welcome to type those into the chat box or hit the question window or raise your hand, and we'll take you off mute in just a few minutes. I've got a couple of more questions for Bill that I like to ask all of our guests. Bill's, what are your personal practices now? What do you do today to continue on your journey of personal and spiritual growth?
Well, a big part of my journey is literally a walking meditation. And the walking meditation really allows me to stay present to what's going on inside me and also to monitor and frame my thoughts to better serve me. And this walking meditation is a very unique kind of walking meditation because, well, I developed it. Well, that's why it's unique, right?
Yes.
So a part of it is that I start training my body to have language congruency. And what language congruency is that I want certain parts of my body to be accountable for and to be responsible for the 4 steps of nonviolent communication. So here's what that congruency looks like. That our eyes and our ears are to be used only for observation. Let me say it again. Our eyes and our ears are to be used only for observation without judgment. Now, that is a lot harder. It's easier to say than it's harder to do, because the language that we've been taught to think in is a language of judgment, criticism, label, diagnosis, blaming, shaming, problem solving. All those different languages have a different valence or triggering mechanism. So step 1 as a part of my practice is training my eyes and ears to observe. Step number 2 is, if I'm observing something, I want to put my hand and tap my belly and say, what's my gut feeling saying here? Is my gut feeling joy, or is my gut feeling irritated? What is showing up? Or is it disappointment? Or is it sadness? Or is it the feeling of inspired or energized? What is going on in my gut feeling? So now I've got my right hand tapping on my belly. So all the listeners can do this. You can practice this. Tap your belly with your right hand, and you're using your eyes and your ears for observation. Then you take your left hand and put it on your heart. And this is where our needs are, and I'm so glad that you mentioned a Maslow's triangle, a pyramid at the front. It's, what are my needs that are causing my emotions?
Mm-hmm.
And this is called congruency, because if my need for respect is not met, then my feeling in my gut area might be anger. Now, I'm pointing with my fingers and saying, need at my heart, respect, anger at my gut. Excellent. Now all of a sudden I've got 3 components together. Number 1, I'm observing. Number 2, I'm naming a feeling. Number 3, I'm naming a need. And number 4 is I just gently touch my lips and say, what is my request to meet my need?
Yeah.
What is my request to meet my need? Not a demand, a request. What is the request? So a big part of my spiritual practice is, whenever I am feeling the feeling of overwhelmed, I better find out what the needs are that are driving overwhelmed. Right. So I'll actually walk and take a step with my right foot. What am I feeling? Tap my belly. Take a step with my left foot. Take my left hand, tap my heart. What do I need? And then say, then stop. What am I requesting in this moment? What would I like to see?
So your business, one of the things that you teach in business with this nonviolent communications is really, you've integrated that into your life to where now it's part of your spiritual practice as well.
Yeah. This is something that I was working at personally, because in my personal life, I didn't meet Marshall Rosenberg until I was 42,
uh-huh.
and up to that point, I was not in a long-term relationships. I would be in relationships 9 months, a year and a half, and I noticed that I kept accumulating mistakes and then feeling really junky, and I had to get out of the relationship because I felt junky.
Yeah.
Instead, as soon as I learned this, I learned that, hey, wait a minute. It's not that I'm feeling junky and I need to do something different. It's I feel junky and I have no idea what need is causing this thing. And once that happened, then I never took on the relationship, the problems with my partner, and I was able to get married and have a family very quickly after that, because it made relationships easier and it made parenting simple, literally simple, because my whole identity, my whole role as a parent completely focused my perspective. It was not trying to get the kid to do something anymore. I don't want to get my kids to do anything. I want my kids to meet their own needs on their own terms. That changes the game completely. Then it says, so Aiden, you have a need for a need to connect with your friends. What would connection look like? He goes, well, I would like to go to the game store. I'm going like, well, that's easy to give to him. So, but once he knew what his need was, he's able to now raise money for whatever he wants because he's going to get his need, rather than, Dad, can you pay for
Yeah.
this? Oh, let me make you happy by paying for it. That's a bad dynamic right there.
Wow, I'd really like to see seminars and webinars that you can give on parenting to really help people understand this four-step process of nonviolent communication and how it can really further relationships. That would be a blessing to many, many families, I am sure.
Yeah, and I have a webinar that's coming up on business, and I didn't think about that earlier, but I do have a webinar on parenting that's coming up also, a 4-week webinar, so we can talk a little bit more about that
We
also.
will
So
in just a couple of minutes. Next question
yeah,
for you. Bill, who
sure.
are your current favorite spiritual teachers?
Wow. My favorite spiritual teachers. Well, let's see. I have a real strong affinity to the Dalai Lama from the place of how he keeps questioning his own practice, his own journey, his own experience of life, and how it works with the world. It's interesting to me to hear him keep keep adjusting to not only his own needs but the needs of the people that are following that faith. The same thing I can say about the new pope, the new Catholic pope, is challenging the status quo, saying, hey, wait,
Yeah.
the need for justice is not being met here, and I'm not going to just hide over here and write a book. I am going to actually say that my need for fairness is not being met here, the need for justice is not here. Here's what social justice would really look like. Here's how we as a church need to do a better job at social justice. I'm going like, wow, isn't that refreshing?
Yeah.
Now, and just watching, different individuals that are not as tied to the the religion part of their spiritual practice, but tied more to the application of a living spirit in real time. The word religion actually traps us a little bit, even in its definition, because religion means to link back. It is a linking back word. Relige means to link to the
Hmm.
past. It's something like that. And so what happens is that if you get stuck in a religious practice, well, then you can, then it's stand, kneel, pray, say the Our Father, say the Hail Mary, you're out.
Yeah.
That is, so you did the letter of the law, but you forgot about the spirit of the law that goes with it. I'm just saying. So and the religion part is to provide some stability, but not necessarily that it's not necessarily a spiritual practice. So those are two up on the front, and I mean there's Eckhart Tolle that I take a look at. There's other. I'm playing in the space of what does neuroscience and thought, how does our physiology and our thought bounce back and forth? A new
Yeah.
person that I'm reading is a guy named Marco Hernandez, and he's very good at this brain body thought piece. Another person is Joe Dispenza, that does a lot of here's your thoughts, here's your physiology. So there's Bruce Lipton, here's your beliefs, here's your physiology.
That's a really interesting thing. Well, I'm eager to hear what you come up with and gain wisdom from you sharing the wisdom that you've gained here. So that's your current focus, is understanding the connection between thought and physiology. That's your next
Yeah.
journey, your next lesson.
Well, yeah, because I mean, our body, there's 297 neuropeptides in the body, and these molecules of emotion are shifting from moment to moment.
Uh-huh.
And we can watch that in instantly, and the listeners can get this right away. All I got to do is say the word spider. All I got to do is say the word black widow spider. Now, as soon as I say black widow spider crawling down the bookshelf behind Paul Hoyt's head. Now, as soon as I say that, there's a little chuckle that shows up there, but your limbic brain does not believe, does not, it has to go into, is it really there or is it not? I think it's really there. It's better to default to the need for safety rather than believe that there's some humor that Bill is trying to get across. So then I got to wipe that out of our consciousness. Now, some of the people that are on the line, they're chuckling a little bit, but if they had any trauma with spider, they're physiologically going scared, nervous,
Yeah.
worried, anxious. Bill, why did you put that there? Now, the way to change the thought instantly is to say the following two words: cancel, clear. Cancel, clear. So spider, black widow spider, cancel, clear. Now, cancel, clear is telling the body that we're canceling the word and the thought, and we're going to clear it past our body, and we're actually going to re-energize. Now, watch this. How about the word ice cream? Ice cream will work. Now, some of the listeners out there can write down their favorite ice cream, the word, just write the type, butter pecan, a mint chocolate chip, mocha things. What's your favorite ice cream, Paul? By the way, what is your favorite
I
ice cream?
think, death by chocolate is probably.
Death by death by chocolate. So all we got to do now, all you got to do is imagine 2 scoops in front of you.
I'm good with that.
Okay. There you go. You're good with that. Now, as soon as the imagination takes place, you can literally measure that your stomach is starting to make the enzyme to digest milk and lactose
Yeah.
and sugar. It's starting, it's preempting. So this is why it's so important to watch our thoughts and get congruency with our thoughts, because all you got to do is think, well, I hope that customer signs up again. It's like, that's not a good thought.
Yeah.
The better thought is how can I meet the customer's needs so they love me so much so they can, and I want to stay in communication and offer them the next thing it's in my funnel, that's in my list, because if they don't know about it, how are they going to know about it? And how can I energize it so it meets more of their needs? How can I keep asking them questions so I can put it in front of them so I don't have to worry about losing them at all? I just got to meet their need. It's just like putting a bowl of ice cream in front of them. They'll eat it. They'll eat it.
I'll be eager to check in on you in a few weeks or a few months and learn what you gain a little bit more wisdom about the nature or the relationship between physiology and thought here in a little bit. I want to move us on to the third section of our conversation today. Bill, I know that you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours because we have talked for hours.
Because we have talked for hours and hours, yeah.
In the past. But I want to open it up a little bit and see if any of the attendees in our webinar this evening have any questions or topics of discussion. If any of you who are listening can, hit the hands up signal or the question bar, I would love to bring you onto the call and invite you into this discussion with Bill and I. And Stephanie, do we have any questions at all for Bill or I that have come up so far?
Hi, Lauren had his hand up earlier. I'm not sure if he has a question. Do you want to unmute him?
I will. I'll see if he's can step in. Lauren, I've taken you off mute. Would you like to share anything or ask a question of Bill or I?
Hello, gentlemen. Hi. You are so precious, both of you. I sent in a question to Stephanie, and it was, what is the possibility? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. What is the possibility of carrying the type of message that both of you and Paul deliver to us, which, by the way, we love, so that our communication with groups that we are presenting to give me the opportunity to give them enough of what we are talking about so key groups can be brought into your presence.
Wow, that's great. Bill, I'm going to let you answer, and then I will take a turn at it.
Sure,
Thank you for the
absolutely.
question, Lauren.
Absolutely. The challenge, in getting out to others is, number one, that the need has to be high enough on their list for learning, discovery, growth. And at the same time is, as we're trying to meet the need for learning, discovery, growth, awareness, spiritual contribution, whatever the highest need is, there's a counter need that goes with it, is the need for emotional safety or the need for certainty that some groups get stuck with. That's called the push-pull of a sale. The push-pull is, I'm trying to meet a need of yours. It's well within the worth of what I'm offering, but the other person has troubles with, oh my gosh, it won't work for me, or oh my gosh. So the way to get it is to get that group's greatest need to entice them to throw their hat over the wall and then hang around us, which is one of the things that Paul and I have talked about in the past. How do we get this to go over to get people to connect with us?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that too. And I don't know about the organizations you're thinking about, Lauren, but many organizations have regularly scheduled events where they bring in speakers, or they have brown bag luncheons, or they have, quarterly management meetings, and they're used to bringing in speakers from the outside to talk on a variety of subjects like that, in which case it's just pretty easy for us to throw our hat in the ring and to say, for one or the both of us to come in and have the conversations with those teams that we're having today. Some people regularly attend webinars or seminars, and we're able just to be one of the next speakers in line for that. Bill and I have talked several times in the past about working together to do day-long or multi-day long retreats and workshops where Bill focuses in on the relationship skills and the interpersonal dynamics of a team, and I focus on the operational aspects and the analytical aspects. As it turns out, Bill and I are almost exact opposites when it comes to the thinking styles, which means that we complement each other really well when it comes to any sort of a joint speaking opportunity or a day-long workshop or something like that. So thank you for asking that. I really do appreciate that question, Lauren. Do you have any follow-ups or other points before I put you back on mute?
Oh, thanks for the opportunity to do exactly that, because my vision is the family office in terms of creating enough of an incentive for them to desire a full drink of what you have to provide. And so I'm trying to build the modules or the path into you and into Bill, because you know how much I value both of you. And but I can't deliver what you can deliver. Only you can do that.
Well, we'd be honored to have those conversations with you, Lauren, and thank you so much for suggesting that as a possibility. I'm going to put you back on mute and see if there are other questions out there or anybody else have their hands up. Or Stephanie, if you have any questions that you have received.
Okay. I don't think I heard this one. This is something that I like to hear from all of your guests. What are your favorite ways, Bill, that you use to shift energy?
Oh, that's a great question.
Bill, I'll let you answer first as my guest. What are your favorite ways today of shifting your energy?
The favorite ways is, a big part of my walking meditation has been to shift energy. There's a couple of very strong beliefs that I hold on to that allows me to shift energy very quickly. The first one is that when I'm facing a conflict and I'm seeing someone upset on the other side, I just gently in my mind imagine that there is a scrolling ticker tape like a stockbroker line going across their forehead
Mm-hmm.
with the following sentence. And the following sentence is, please, comma, help me understand my pain.
Wow.
Now, when they're upset, they're looking for help to understand their pain. And that allows me to shift my perception and perspective that it's not about me. It's their pain. Why is it their pain? Because they can feel whatever they want anytime they want. And I have no idea what's going on there. So step number one, please help me understand my pain. And then step number two, which is on my belief structure, is mind reading is overrated. Do not mind read what somebody else is pain is.
Ask them, right?
You gotta ask them. And the asking is
awesome.
from a place of empathy. So if you ask the question, what's wrong, honey? That's not a good question, because you'll get two bad answers. Either nothing or you should know. It's so instead ask a empathetic question. So it might sound like this. I'm guessing you might be feeling frustrated. Did you need some communication with me today? Now, I have no idea if those two things are correct. If it's frustrated or if it's communication, that's the cause. I don't know. So what brings me a lot of peace is to ask that question and then listen to see if I'm anywhere in the ballpark. And if I am, then what happens is then I just start working on the need and then just try to set aside the feeling, because the need is going to shift the feeling naturally. And that's whether it's a tribe in Africa or a police department and gang group, two gangs, and things, or a teacher conflict that I did the other day with a teacher and a student that, they were having troubles and the parents were in on it and I mediated that, or divorce mediation, which I've done several in the past. Or it's a screaming 2-year-old or 3-year-old. It works all the time. That 3-year-old, they energetically get it if we're listening for their pain rather than trying to get them to shut up. Just saying. It doesn't work as well.
I love that.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'll take a stab at answering that question on, one of my favorite ways of shifting energy. I have part of my spiritual practice is finding new pathways to spirit, new little series of thoughts, typically, that I can hang on to, little mantras, affirmations that help me shift energy. And I literally have hundreds of them. I put 150 of them in my first book, The Practice of Awakening, and another 162 in my second book, The Practice of Awakening 2, The First Light of Joy. And I'm writing, the next book and the next book after that. There seems like every few days I come up with a new path, a new, way of thinking, series of thoughts that helps lead me back to spirit. So there's always the last 3 or 4 of those little insights that I've gotten. And every morning, part of my practice is to review the last 3 or 4 insights or pathways that I have discovered for myself or created for myself that really helps me shift my energy in a very, very big way in the mornings. But I have to say that my very favorite ways are songs. I've written, a dozen songs or so that help me shift energy. So I'm more often than not, in between phone calls with clients or when I go, into the kitchen to grab a glass of water, that I'm humming a little song that has been very meaningful to me. And it's that combination of thought and the physicality of singing, and hearing it that really helps it be tangible and grounded. So number 1 on my list is singing a little song or two. Bill, we're coming to the end of our time together. Like I said, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. How can people become engaged with you? And do you have any upcoming events or special offers that you might be able to offer to folks either listening live or on the recording?
Well, I have two specific things that are coming up. The first one is a business acceleration webinar, and I have it's going to be 4 weeks. It's going to be Thursdays, and that to get on that, and it's $99,
Uh-huh.
and I just came off of a conference, and I'd be happy to give the same discount that I gave to all the conference members, which was $99, and very nice piece of work on how to do business development and from those 4 different thinking styles, and to be able to see it'll improve your marketing, it'll improve sales, it'll improve your how do you approach financing and pricing, it'll improve operations. So I really spend time getting the word acceleration to be aligned with these various different thinking styles. So, and that website is it's going to be 3 words, corporateculturedevelopment.com / the word accelerator, and then .html. So it's corporateculturedevelopment.com / accelerator .html, and that's for the business workshop. The parenting workshop that I come up, and it's going to start in June, so in another week. Yeah. I think it starts like the 2nd or so. That one is going to be at billstierle.com. And it's the last name, Bill Stierle, is, well, it's up there on the screen, yep. billstierle.com. And then it's / 4 week, the number 4, and then week.html, and that'll bring you to the parenting webinar. And if you go to that one, there's actually a free hour or hour and a half introduction of that webinar for you to take a look at, and I think that price, the discounted price, is $127 for 4 weeks, or it's actually 5 sessions, and that's really valuable because it talks to how can you get greater connection with your kids, how to language things to reduce them being upset, how to get them to do their homework with joy, how to put a tantrum out in a 6-year-old in under 37 seconds. Wow. You know, those kinds of things. So what are some things to say or do in order to de-escalate and or to create greater connection with our kids? So that's a lot of fun, and so those are the 2 things for everybody.
Thank you very much, Bill. I know I appreciate that, and I want to encourage everybody who's listening to this to get some more of Bill Stierle, one of my best friends, one of my teachers who's taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt encouraging you to be an awakened CEO, to play the awakening game with me. That's every second of every day. Do whatever you can to shift your energy and be in the highest vibration possible so that you can be a light to the world like the rest of us awakened CEOs. Until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt, wishing you a most marvelous, prosperous, and awakened day. Thank you very much.